In this lecture, we are going to handle the response to our endpoint. First, we must define the function for handling the response. From the init.php file, we called the function up_REST_API signup_handler. Let's define this function in a separate file. Inside the REST API folder, create a folder called signup.php. Next, define this function. A REST API endpoint should always return a JSON object. It doesn't matter if the request was a success or not. WordPress will help us with generating a JSON object. From this function, we can return an array. This array will be converted into a JSON object by WordPress. From my experience, I like to create a variable for storing the response. The name of the variable will be called response. The value for this variable will be an array with a key called status. The value for this key will be 1. The response variable will indicate the success of a request by storing the status of the response. If the response is 1, the request has failed. If the status is set to 2, the request has succeeded. By default, we're going to set the initial value to 1. The status should be updated at the end of the function. Let's update the status key to 2. Lastly, let's return the response variable. This might feel redundant. In the next set of lectures, we are going to add additional code between the return statement and response variable declaration. For now, let's leave it at this. We can test our endpoint by using Postman. Switch over to the Postman application. It shouldn't be necessary to adjust the request. Postman should remember the details from previous attempts. Let's try submitting the request. After a few moments, the response from our endpoint will appear at the bottom. Our array was converted into a JSON object. As you can see, the status key has been transformed into a property. This property has a value of 2, which indicates the request was a success. Great! We've successfully handled the response. In the next set of lectures, we are going to flesh out the rest of the function by registering the user.